Hi everybody, Justin here, and I'm so excited to have you here today for the first ever Kindred Stamps virtual retreat. Today in my class, we are going to be using the exclusive Clay Slice and Shaker Pack to make the Shaker card using both the mouse and his pup. So let's get right to it. First, we're gonna take a 5.5 inch square piece of blending cardstock. Now, when I say 5.5 inches square, I mean that the width and the length is both 5.5 inches. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take a 3-inch circle die and get it about as centered into this card as we possibly can. So if you guys wanna do your measurements to make sure it's perfectly centered, you can, or you can be like myself and eyeball it. I'm gonna use some of the balloon washi tape included in your kit in order to tack down my die. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm going to run it through my die cutting machine. So now that I've got my die all tacked down, I'm gonna run this through and I'll be right back. All right, you guys, now that we've got our circle die all cut out, we're going to take the 1 3/4 inch circle die and we're going to cut the first ear out. So what we're gonna do is we're going to put this into place. I'm calling this about the 1030 location. And what I try to do is I try to make sure that the portion that's over here is about as wide as the portion that's gonna be over here, just to make sure everything is spaced how I would like it. I'm gonna take that same balloon tape and I'm gonna tack down my die. And I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna run this through my die cutting machine and I'll be right back and we're gonna get that second ear cut out of our shaker window. All right, you guys, I wanted to show you what I'm going to do now that this part has been die cut through so you guys can see how we're gonna get this part properly lined up. So what I'm gonna go ahead and do is I'm gonna remove this die cut area. What's really nice about using a washi tape or a low tack tape on die cutting is that you can remove it very easily. So I'm gonna go ahead, I'm gonna put this tape to the side because I'm gonna come back and use it in a second. Now, this die cut piece from this ear is gonna be very important and the key to make sure that our second ear is lined up. So what we're gonna do is we're going to place this ear just so the curve of the ear fits into the curve of the original 3-inch die cut. So you're gonna move this ear to make sure that it's about in place as you want it. Like I said, remember you want about this section of the ear to be about the same as this section of the ear. So once you think you've eyeballed that correctly, you're gonna take your 1 3/4 inch die and you're gonna put it into place. What's really nice is that die cut piece is gonna hold this and give you kind of a groove, so it's gonna lock it in, but you're still gonna wanna take some of your washi tape and tack it down, which is what I'm doing right now. And if you guys are a little cautious like I am, you can go ahead and you can put a third piece down just so it doesn't move around. Totally optional. But sometimes I just get a little particular with my die cutting so I don't have to do it again. So I'm gonna run this through my die cutting machine right now, you guys, and I'll be right back. All right, guys, as you can see, our shaker window is all cut out and ready for some ink blending. So we're gonna be using the exclusive Park Pals Retreat Kit stencil, which has these really fun fireworks on them. Also, it has a buildable mouse balloon that you can put this mouse head inside of a balloon with a string. We're only going to be using the 4 firework images today, but what I wanted to let you guys know is that if you wanted to, you can actually use these 2 fireworks together and these 2 fireworks together, and they nest inside of each other that you can do some layered firework blending. So keep that in mind for when you use this. I know the stencil is going to get a lot of use throughout the year, so I'm super excited that we have it today for our retreat. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna get into some ink blending. I like to move from light ink blending to dark ink blending. Reason for that is sometimes your lighter colors will pick up the darker colors. If the darker colors don't exist on the paper yet, I don't have to worry about that. So the first color that I'm gonna use for some ink blending is Fossilized Amber. So I've got my mini distress ink pad. I'm going to use a foam blending tool to pick up some of the ink. I really like using foam blending tool with these small pads because I think it picks up the ink the way that I like it, but you guys can use whatever sort of blending tool that you'd like. So what we're gonna do is we're just gonna blend a couple of these fireworks. I think I'm gonna do about 2 of them. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna put one of the fireworks in this corner right up here, and I'm just gonna quickly ink blend over it. And I'm just gonna do one color for these fireworks. All right, so we've got that one, and then we're gonna do another one down here. So we're gonna use this firework. Make sure not to flip your stencil over. You don't wanna accidentally smudge the other side. And all right, this is in place. And I'm just kind of holding it down and running my foam blender over it. If you guys want to be extra careful, you could absolutely tack down your stencil with washi tape if you would like. I am pretty confident in holding a stencil in place while I'm blending, so I'm not doing that, but by all means, if you guys want to, please do. Now, one thing that I do just to make sure I don't get any cross-contamination when ink blending is I do like to clean my stencil between colors. So I'm gonna put this to the side. Any sort of water will do, you guys. I have a little bit of a spray tool that I like to use, but if you have a wet rag, really anything will work. So I'm just gonna spritz my stencil, and then I'm going to take the purple Kindred Stamps craft rag, and I'm going to clean it up. This craft rag is just so wonderful for cleaning up your craft space, anything that you might need it for, and then you can just pop it in the wash when you're done. All right, you guys. And please remember, you can use either side of the stencil because you can get reversed images if you do it that way as well. All right, so next what we're going to be doing is I'm going to be moving my card panel, the shaker window panel, back into place, and we're gonna move on to the next color, which is going to be barn door. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to pick up some of the distress ink. I'm going to dab a little bit of it off. And then actually what I'm also going to do, you guys, is this fossilized amber. I'm gonna dab a little bit of this off as well, because we're gonna use this for some splattering. All right. So what we're gonna do is we're going to go ahead and we're gonna put our stencil into place. I just accidentally put that on top of my ink. That's okay, just be extra careful, you guys. And we're gonna go ahead and we're just gonna ink blend over this. Repositioned it a little bit, so get it back in place. Alrighty. Oop. See, sometimes, guys, that's why it's nice to tack it down, just so you don't get that sliding. All right, I've got my first firework all blended out. So now I'm gonna do a couple more of the red fireworks. I'm gonna do one over here. And just remember, guys, that when you're ink blending parts of a stencil, it's nice when they run off the page because it looks like it's not contained, which I think is important when ink blending. All right, so I'm gonna hold this into place. I'm just gonna put some of this down. All right. All right, that firework is all taken care of. We're gonna do another little red firework. We're gonna do one over here. Right about there. And then one more red firework, you guys. We're gonna do one right here. Twist it just a tad. All right. All right, and our red is all done. So what I'm gonna do, like I said with the last one, I'm gonna remove my stencil. I'm going to spritz it, and I'm gonna clean it. And also making sure that my space is dry as well, just so I don't have any issues with any wetness. All right, and you guys can kind of tell when you push it down onto your mat that if you still see some water on the other side, it just means it needs a little bit more drying. So that's what I'm doing right now. Of course, a little bit of movement, that's all right. Okay, now we're gonna move on to the last color, Fireworks, which is gonna be black. And the reason for my choice in colors, you guys, is I wanted it to tie in all the colors in the clay slices and the shaker pack. So what I'm gonna go ahead and do is I'm gonna take my Black Soot Distress ink, and I'm gonna use another foam blender. I'm gonna pick up some Black Soot Distress ink, dab a little bit off, and then I'm gonna start ink blending. So we're gonna do the little firework in this corner, just kind of ink blend with this pad. All right. All right, that firework is all completed. And then we're gonna do one other black one right over here, you guys. So we're going to pick up a little bit more ink, and I'm gonna use this firework over here to do a nice one last final firework for the blending. All right, it moved a little bit, so I'm just positioning it back into place. Alrighty. And that is all complete, you guys. So now what I'm gonna do next is I'm just gonna use our little old watercolor brush, and I am going to just flick a little bit of the colors that I have left over of the inks just to get some splatters. You know how fireworks, you guys, they have like little bits that fly around? This really helps amp that up. So as you guys can see, I'm going to, and I apologize because it's a little off camera, so let me go ahead and do a little bit of ink smushing so you guys can see it. I'm gonna take some of the fossilized amber and I'm just gonna smush it down. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take a little bit of water, add to it. I'm gonna move my colored images out of the way just so there's no issues with them getting splattered on. And I'm gonna take just this ratty little watercolor brush that I have in my stash. I'm gonna pick up some of this, and then I'm gonna just tap the brush, and you're gonna get nice little splatters. So maybe pick it up 2 or 3 times. And this is gonna just give you a nice little fireworks splatter effect. So I'm gonna move this to the side, you guys. I'm gonna do a quick little cleanup just before I move on to the next color. The other thing as well is you do wanna make sure that your brush is clean. So I just like to rub it off. Some people like to clean it a little bit more with having a little bit of a water dish. This is just what I'm doing, especially since I'm moving from light to dark colors. So I'm gonna smush down some barn door. I'm gonna add a little bit of water to it. Oop, I knocked over one of my brushes, I apologize. I'm gonna pick it up, and I'm just gonna splatter. It's really getting fun and vibrant, you guys. This is just a great way to add a little bit of detail to your projects. You don't have to do the ink splattering if you don't want to or you're not comfortable with it. I've just enjoyed doing it to add a little bit extra detail. So, all right, so we're gonna clean that up. Perfect. And I'm gonna clean off my brush. As you can see, I've got a little bit of leftover red ink. All right. Now we're gonna finish off the splattering. We're gonna do some black soot. So I'll smush some of that down. Perfect. And then add a little bit of water. Pick it up. All right, we'll do a little bit more black. All right, clean this up. And then what we're gonna do, you guys, if you don't have one, I'm going to ask that you wait to move on, you got to make sure all of your little drops are dry. It should just take a couple minutes for it to dry depending on your paper, or if you have a heat gun, which you should have for some of the projects that use embossing powder like this one. I'm just going to zap this really quick with my heat gun to get this to dry up quickly. So I'm going to hit this with my heat gun really quick, you guys, and I'm going to be right back. All right, you guys, my splatters are all dry and I'm ready to do one final layer of some ink blending. So what I'm going to do is the final color that I'm going to use is Mustard Seed Distress ink. The reason I'm using mustard seed and not fossilized amber is because the mustard seed is a little bit lighter, so as I'm ink blending this over the edges, you're still going to be able to see the detail from the fossilized amber portions. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to pick up some of the mustard seed ink with my my foam ink tool, and then I'm just going to do this along all the edges of the card, and this is going to get you a nice discoloration, or just a little bit of a distressed yellow edge. Of course, it's going to give the card some really nice color. I usually pick up ink multiple times when ink blending just to make sure my colors are really coming through, you guys. So I'm just doing the edges. This way, the front of your card isn't going to look so stark white. All right. It's going to look like almost like a light yellow paper, you guys. And I'm just doing small little circular motions just to have a little bit of control while I'm ink blending. All right. Alrighty, I've got the edges of my panel all taken care of. So now I'm going to also distress the edges of my shaker window as well. So I'm going to go ahead and lay that down. And because my colors have dried and set a little bit, there's not a lot of blending of colors going on, just more so the adding of this mustard seed ink to the distressed edges like I'm doing at the moment. Also, by letting all of your drops dry, you guys, you're preventing any sort of unnecessary smudging, and which is very important, especially like right now as I'm moving my fingers all around my panel. So it is always important too to make sure that your fingers are clean, just so you don't have any unsightly smudging that you may not want, but we can always cover that up with embellishments later if it happens. All right, you guys, so we're done with the ink blending for this card. So now we're gonna start working on what this background and shaker window is going to be. So what I've done is I'm gonna flip my, I'm actually gonna clean this off really quick just so I don't get any unnecessary discoloration. I'm using my Purple Kindred Stamps craft rag, or craft towel might be a better term for it. Making sure my surface is dry. All right. I'm going to flip this over, you guys. What I've done is I have a 5-inch square panel of acetate, and this acetate is going to be used as my shaker window part. So it's going to create a nice little barrier to keep all my little shaker bits in place. So I figured that the 5-inch square is going to cover this nicely. So I'm going to take some liquid adhesive. This is Art Glitter Designer Adhesive. I apologize, my bottle is a little beat up because it's very well loved. And I'm just gonna run my glue around the edges because I want it to have a nice application. And it's very important, you don't want any gaps in adhesive because this can cause your shaker bits to possibly come out of place. All right, so what I'm gonna go ahead and do is I'm gonna take my shaker window, I'm going to place it down. Alrighty. If you get a little bit of stuff that's gonna creep out, totally okay, we can clean that up. As you can see, I'm getting a little bit, that's okay. So we're gonna pick this up. I'm just gonna take my purple towel, I'm gonna clean up the adhesive. I'm also going to clean up the adhesive here as well, nicely cleaning that up. Alrighty. You just want to make sure that it's tacked down nicely. So as you guys can see, my shaker window is in place and adhered, so that'll be really nice so we can get going on getting our shaker card put together. So what I would like to do is, since this is mostly completed, I'm gonna start working on getting this panel finished, and we'll do the shaker part at the end. So what I wanna do now is I wanna work on my sentiment, which I'm gonna be using the You're a Real Pal sentiment that's included in the set. So I am going to be using one of my Misties to get this into place. Now, if you guys don't have a Misty, that is entirely okay. You can stamp this into place yourself. So what I've gone ahead and done is I have my Misty, and I've also pre-cut a piece of black cardstock. As you can see, it's 5.5 inches by 1/2 inch tall. So I'm gonna put this into place, just so I don't have any sort of issues. I use my magnets. All right. Let me move this up so you guys can see it a little bit better. Like I said, 1/2 inch, 5.5 inches. This is what's gonna be used for me to stamp my sentiment into place. And the sentiment that I'm gonna use is that You're a Real Pal. So what I'm gonna go ahead and do is I'm gonna put the You're a Real Pal into place. I might have to slightly move this. There we go. And then I'm gonna be using the clear Versamark watermark stamp pad, which is what I use for when I do my embossing. I'm gonna put that down. I'm gonna stamp it down. All right, and it says You're a Real Pal. I'm gonna do one more layer, you guys, just to make sure that it's nice and juicy. Pushing it down to make sure it's covering everything. Wonderful. I'm gonna go ahead and pick this up. I'm gonna set my Misty off to the side. I'm gonna take a piece of scrap paper, and I'm going to take some white embossing powder from my stash. I'm gonna just pour it, and then I'm also going to shake off the excess. Now, I usually blow on it a little bit just to make sure I don't have any sort of stragglers. If you do, just take a brush. You can use the same dry one from when we ink splattered, and you can get the little pieces that might be sticking on there just to kind of clean it up a little bit. Gentle hands help well with this. You can also use, if you have an anti-static tool, that helps as well. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to run my heat gun over this, you guys. So let me move this to the side. I'm gonna clean up my embossing powder before I go ahead and do the heat setting, and I'll show you guys how it looks. Usually I like to do my heat embossing off camera just because it's a little loud, but I'm gonna keep my gun on and I'm gonna show you guys how it's gonna look. So I've got my sentiment, I've got my heat gun, which, hold on one second, you guys. All right, and my sentiment is all heat set. And if you guys caught it, there is a moment when you're heat setting where your embossing powder starts to melt, and you can see that with a little bit of a shine, and then it sets into place. So I'm gonna take my craft towel, and I'm gonna go ahead and just clean off my sentiment. Of course, you wanna make sure it's dry first so you don't smush anything. The next thing I'm gonna be doing is I do have a pre-cut strip. This is 5.5 inches long by 5/8 of an inch tall, and we're going to use this to frame the sentiment. So I'm gonna use my same liquid adhesive, and I'm just gonna put it on the back of the strip. Sorry, a little bit of a slip of the fingers. All right. I'm gonna flip this over and I'm gonna put it into place. And the paper that's framing it is what I'm calling the mouse gloves print. We're going to be using that a little bit for this card, you guys. So this is just a little bit of an excess piece. Alrighty. Just going to make sure that this is all good and ready to go. And we're going to put this on the card to see how it looks. All right, and it does stick over just a little bit. So this is gonna be perfect because this is gonna allow me to cut it. So hold on one second, I'm gonna trim this down. If you guys already have yours pre-cut so that it's exactly the length, that is perfect. I'm just gonna go ahead and put this down right now with some liquid adhesive, and then I'm gonna trim off the edges. And you're wanting to make sure it's level all the way across, you guys. And I'm taking some scissors and I'm just trimming the edges. Wonderful. Now I'm going to take my characters and I'm going to also adhere them to the card. So what I'm going to do is my little pupper is going to go down first, and then his little mouse friend is going to go right over him just for a little bit of overlapping. So let's get our pupper all adhered down. So take your liquid adhesive, just add a little bit to the back. A nice thin application is perfect. We're going to put him into place. Now guys, if you have any sort of craft tweezers, that works perfectly for little holdings of your images while you're gluing them. I did not have mine handy at this time. Sorry. So now we're gonna take the mouse, we're gonna do another little bit of adhesive. We're gonna go ahead and we're gonna put him down. And it's totally okay if you've got a little bit that overlaps over your pup and also overlaps over the window on the side of the card. Totally acceptable, you guys. A little bit of overlap is always extra fun with these projects. All right, now I'm gonna take the shaker pack, and I just wanna add a couple embellishments, you guys, just to really amp up the card. So I'm gonna add a couple bits in there. And what I'm gonna do is just put some into place. So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna put like a red one here. We'll do a yellow one here. We'll do another yellow one over here. Hold on, we gotta grab it. Black one up here. How about another red one? Gotta grab it, I'm so sorry, you guys. All right, so now let me center this a little bit for y'all, and we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna tack these down. When I'm doing embellishments, I do like to work in odd numbers just because I know that when it comes to design, that odd numbers are more attractive to the eye. So that's why I usually like to work in odd numbers. And I know you can say, well, there's 2 over there. Yes, but there's 5 total. So I was gonna say if you wanna use less, you could do 3. I don't know if I recommend just doing 1. That might look a little lonely. But I'm gonna say 5 or 7 sequins should be more than sufficient. All right. All right, we're gonna let this dry, but I'm gonna be working on the next portion of the card, which is going to be getting the card base ready. So I'm gonna let these sequins dry, so I'm just gonna set this to the side for the moment. And then we're gonna work on the card base. All right, you guys, what we're gonna work on now is the base of the card. So what we're gonna go ahead and do is I have my 5.5-inch square card base, and I also have this piece of mouse glove cardstock that we're going to use as well. This cardstock is trimmed to be about 5.5 inches wide and also about 5 3/8 of an inch height-wise. The reason I have it that it's not a perfect square is because I did use part of the card panel. This piece of paper I used for the strip of the sentiment. So I didn't want to waste our pretty cardstock and design paper that comes with the kit. So this and the piece that mats the sentiment strip is all from the same piece of paper. So what we're gonna go ahead and do is we're gonna adhere this down. So I'm taking my liquid adhesive and I'm just gonna run it like this. All right. We're gonna go ahead and we're gonna put it into place, make sure nothing's overlapping. If it's not a perfect cut, you guys, it's totally okay. Really all you're gonna see of this is what you see through the shaker window. So this is all perfect. So now what we're gonna do is I'm gonna set this to the side and we're gonna work on putting the foam tape onto our card. So I'm gonna flip this over and I'm gonna take my foam tape. And what I like to do with my foam tape, I believe this is an 1/8 of an inch thick. I do like to double it up. Actually, it might be a 1/16 of an inch, but I just like to double it up to give my shaker pieces a nice little portion to move. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cut a piece of foam tape off. So I've got one nice long piece. To double it up, you guys, I kind of think it's pretty simple. I just like to meet the edges like this. Try to match it up as perfectly as I can, and then run my finger like this, and you should have a nice doubled piece. And I know that there's a little bubble right here, so you can just cut it, and there you go. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna trim this so it goes around the mouse face and the ears, and then we're also going to put some on the edges as well. So I like to work in small pieces with foam tape. So I'm cutting this apart, cutting them in half lengthwise, and we're gonna start putting these into place. And it doesn't have to be a perfect application where it's perfectly outlining the mouse. You just don't wanna be able to see it on the other side. So as long as you're doing that, guys, you're good. So we're cutting. And don't take the backing of your foam tape off yet. We're gonna do that at like the very, very end. So, all right. So we're gonna cut a little piece here. And if you guys have to make adjustments to your foam tape as we're going, please, please, please know that that is totally okay. This part does take a little bit of time. And some foam tapes are a little sturdier than others and require a little bit more manipulation. So we're gonna go ahead, we're gonna put that there. I'll just trim a little bit off. Alrighty, I'm gonna cut this piece in half. And you don't want any gaps with the foam tape. You do want it to create one nice enclosed area because you don't want any of your shaker bits falling out, you guys. Because then you're not gonna have a shaker card, you're just gonna have a window card. All right. All right, tacking that down. We're getting there, you guys. I'm just trying to manipulate the tape the best I can to reduce the likelihood of any sort of gaps, but we're almost there. All right, and I should be able to fairly connect these. Perfect, and then I can just do a quick trim. All right, you guys. And just to be safe, I'm gonna put this right here. Oop. There we go. All right, now what we're gonna do is we're gonna use some of our leftover tape just to get all of our corners all lined up. And I still need a little bit more foam tape. You do use a good chunk of foam tape with this, you guys. All right, so I'm doing another doubled layer. We're just gonna put this whole piece right there, I think. Because you just wanna make sure there's not a lot of empty pockets, because otherwise your card base isn't going to be that sturdy. this up. Let's see. That way I know it'll fit. So we're gonna put you here. We're gonna put you, we'll trim this so I don't have to take the backing off quite yet. You can go right there. And then I do need just a couple little pieces for here, here, and here, but this should not be that much. All right. Make sure that should fit there fine. We are going to have quite a bit of backing to take off, you guys, so just be patient with the rest of this process. I promise it'll pay off in the end. All right, we'll do a little bit of a piece right here and a little bit of a piece right there, and that should be it. All right, we are in the home stretch, you guys. Perfect. So now I've got foam tape that should enclose my shaker window entirely. I also have foam tape around the edges that's going to give nice support to the other areas of the card. Oh, I'm just seeing right now there is a little bit of overlap right here, so I'm going to trim that off real quick, and then we'll move on. Okay, you guys. So we're going to take our card base, and we're going to make sure that your card base is pretty nice and able to keep shut, because you are going to be putting the shaker bits in here and you want it to not move too much. So I'm going to take, just to make sure it's not moving around too much, because as you can see, it's opening just a tad, one of my scrap washi pieces, and I'm going to just double it up, press it down, and put it right in there to help keep it shut. Just a nice little tip. So what we're going to do is I'm going to take some of our shaker bits. I'm going to pour them into the bowl. Well, that's a little bit more than I wanted. That's okay. All right, so some of the sequins and then some of the clay slices as well of these fun little mouse pants. Pour some of those out. You're kind of making your own shaker blend mix. Perfect. All right. So now what you want to do is, I like to pour these onto my card base and then place this over top. So what I want to do is I'm going to try to eyeball. So kind of in the center. So between this little diamond of mice gloves is where I'm going to want the bulk of my shaker bits to be. So I'm going to very carefully shake this out. Just to make sure everything is nice in place. All right. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay this over, and as you can see, it does lay over quite nicely, and it has everything contained within the shaker window. So now I'm going to very carefully put this off to the side, and I'm going to start removing my backing of my foam tape. And just make some careful movements, you guys. All it takes is one quick jolt of the hand to accidentally send all of your sequins and shaker bits flying, and ain't nobody got a time for a mess when we have time to craft, you know? I mean, crafting can be a mess, but it's okay. That's the fun type of mess. You don't want to have to clean the mess, though. Ooh, pull that off. Alrighty. All right, you guys, this can be a little bit of a nerve-wracking part, but what you want to do is you're going to have to very carefully make sure everything gets lined up. So I've got this. The best thing I can suggest to do is to hold your shaker card and try to look over it. And you want to try to match up the corners. All right. And you want to press it down once it's in place. You want to kind of minimize any sort of overlap. All right. As you can see, I've got a little bunch of them in the center. There we go. And guys, look, we've got our shaker card. So as you can see, after everything's put into place, you've got a fun little 5-inch square shaker card using the pupper and the mouse from the Park Pal set. That is a really fun card to give to a friend, especially since it says the You're a Real Pal sentiment. So let me hold this a little close, you guys, to see what we've created today. And if you guys have any questions, please make sure to put a comment on the video, tag me if you can so I can make sure that we see it, and I'll be more than happy to get you as quickly as I can. So like I said, any questions, let me know. We've finalized our project. I hope you guys love it. I think that this is a super adorable way to use the Virtual Retreat Park Pals set and other materials. I hope that you guys learned a lot and had fun creating. And then make sure to let me know if you've got any questions as well. Thank you so much, guys, and have fun with the rest of your classes.